All right, today we're diving into a story of some pretty massive transformation. It's all about how India is using the very building blocks of life to create its next great economic and really strategic revolution. We are talking about biotech.
So let's just start with a number, a really big one, $165.7 billion. That's the value of India's bioeconomy right now, in 2024. Now, that's a staggering figure on its own, but what's truly mind-blowing is the speed of change behind it. This isn't just growth, it's an absolute economic explosion.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. It went from about $10 billion in 2014 to over $165 billion today. That's a 16-fold jump in a single decade. I mean, that's the kind of hypergrowth that can literally change the destiny of a nation. So the big question is, how on earth did this happen? And maybe more importantly, where is it all going?
Well, we're going to break that whole story down. First, we'll look at the rise itself, from potential to real power. Then, we'll define what we're even talking about here. We'll peek inside the strategic engine room to see the policies that are fueling this fire, see some amazing examples of biotech in action, and then finally, we'll look at the hurdles and the horizons on the road ahead.
Okay, so let's kick things off with that journey from just having potential to becoming a genuine economic powerhouse. This was no overnight success story, let me tell you. It's a story of very deliberate strategy and just explosive execution.
Now, what's really interesting is this comparison you hear again and again. People are calling biotech India's next IT revolution. And you know, that's a powerful analogy for a really good reason. Just like IT did, biotech has the potential to leapfrog old technologies, tap into India's incredible youth population to create high-skilled jobs, and just fundamentally reshape the country's place in the world.
But to really get this revolution, we have to define the frontier. So before we go any further, what exactly is biotechnology, and what does this whole sector actually look like in India today?
So the official OECD definition sounds a little academic, right? But here's the simple way to think about it. It's basically using life as technology. It covers everything from making beer through fermentation to the most advanced gene editing you can imagine. It's a technology that cuts across almost every industry out there.
And here's where all that tech is being put to work in India. The biggest piece of the pie, bioindustrial, is all about greener solutions. Think biofuels like ethanol that can replace gasoline, or bio-based chemicals that are way better for the planet. Next up is biopharma, which has always been a strong suit for India, covering everything from life-saving vaccines to new medicines. And then you've got the really fast-growing areas of bio-IT and bioagriculture, which are all about digitizing biology and transforming how we grow our food.
And look, this growth isn't just a domestic story. Oh no, India is a certified global player now. It's already in the top 12 for biotech destinations worldwide, and number 3 in the entire Asia-Pacific region. And of course, it's known as the world's pharmacy for being the biggest vaccine maker on the planet. These aren't just stats. They show that the foundation for the future is already here, and it is incredibly strong.
So, this brings us to the core of it all, the strategic engine room. This incredible growth didn't just happen by accident. It was designed. So how did India build the engine that's powering this whole revolution?
Well, the master plan is a policy called BioE3. That's short for Biotechnology for Economy, Environment, and Employment. It was approved in 2024, and it basically builds on years of planning to create a framework for a net-zero bioeconomy. And as you can see, the goals here are incredibly ambitious and forward-looking. We're talking everything from creating climate-proof crops to pioneering next-gen medicines and even using biology to capture carbon and fight climate change.
And this quote from the Union Minister really just sums it all up, doesn't it? The BioE3 policy is seen at the very highest levels as a national mission. It's about fundamentally rewiring the economy to be greener, bigger, and to create more jobs.
But you know, a big policy is one thing. How does it actually turn into action on the ground? Well, that happens through key institutions. The whole thing is led by the Department of Biotechnology, or DBT, and under it, an organization called BURAC has created this amazing pipeline for innovation. A scientist with an idea can get seed money. If it shows promise, another fund helps them build a working prototype. And finally, a third fund helps them actually jump into the market. It's this structured, handheld path from the lab to a real launch.
And the result of all that support? An absolute explosion in entrepreneurship. I mean, get this, in just over a decade, the number of biotech startups has rocketed from a mere 50 to an estimated 10,000 by 2025.
This is the engine room in action, turning policy into a buzzing, dynamic ecosystem.
So, this thriving ecosystem brings us to the really cool stuff, biotech in action. It's time to move beyond the numbers and policies and look at the concrete breakthroughs this whole movement is actually producing. And these breakthroughs are genuinely stunning. We're seeing world firsts, like the world's very first DNA vaccine for COVID-19. We're seeing game changers for food security, like gene-edited rice that has a massive 20% increase in yield. We're seeing the absolute cutting edge of medicine, with the first ever approval for an Indian gene therapy trial that could potentially cure a genetic disorder. And get this, we are even seeing Indian biotech research happening in space.
And this is the most crucial thing to remember. This isn't just abstract science happening in a lab somewhere. It's about real, tangible solutions that are directly impacting public health, strengthening the food on our tables, and just pushing the boundaries of what we thought was even possible. Okay, so for our final section, let's look at what's next. The trajectory is incredible, but it's not like the path ahead is perfectly clear. There are definitely some challenges. So what hurdles does the industry need to get over to reach its next huge milestone?
And these hurdles are pretty significant. You've got regulatory processes, the infamous red tape, that can be slow, sometimes taking years to launch your product. After a big boom, venture capital funding has dipped a bit recently. Research and development is still incredibly expensive. A single drug trial can cost millions. And of course, there's always a need for more people with highly specialized skills. These are the real challenges India has to solve to keep this momentum going. But, and this is a really big but, to counter those challenges, India has a powerful set of advantages that are pretty much unmatched. First, you've got this massive pool of young, skilled, and ambitious talent. Second, unwavering policy support from the top. Third, a rapidly growing infrastructure of incubators to help startups. And finally, a huge and diverse population, which is actually a critical asset for conducting the clinical trials needed to develop new medicines for the whole world.
So when you weigh the challenges against these immense advantages, the path forward becomes pretty darn clear. With a growth rate of nearly 16% a year, the industry is on a firm, calculated trajectory to hit its next ambitious target, a $300 billion bioeconomy by the year 2030.
Which leaves us with a final, fascinating question. For decades, India's growth was powered by bits and bytes, the IT revolution. Now, it's being powered by the code of life itself. With biology as its new engine, what frontiers will India conquer next? The possibilities? Well, they seem pretty limitless.